Hello everyone, my name is Key and you are now tuned in to Key's Tech Corner. So welcome back everybody. Look, it is always a pleasure and an honor to have you here in my Tech Corner. For those who are new to the group, I am a technical solutions specialist for IBM and have a heart and passion for the product that we're going to speak about today, okay? So in terms of backgrounds, we're going to talk about how Instana promotes and provides application performance monitoring in the education space or higher ed. It's gonna be really juicy. So when speaking about the power of Instana, I have a great use case for us, okay? So what is one thing that we all had in common during our scholastic years? Books, of course, right? Over the past 175 years, Macmillan has been one of the largest textbook publishers in America. As time has progressed, this organization has grown to serve about 2.5 million students with both textbooks and guess what else? Software. Now with software in the mix, both students and teachers now heavily rely on Macmillan to submit homework and exchange feedback. As we all know, with software comes management, and this is something that their VP of Infrastructure and Site Reliability, David Merriweather, takes very, very seriously. When in the data stage with Instana, Macmillan relayed that students are notorious for submitting work at the last minute. So when their platform goes down just for 15 minutes, many deadlines are missed. Students, right? We don't do right. This is extremely risky because this causes students to have to redo work and instructors to redo feedback. And this was a no-go for Mr. Merriweather. Of course, he's passionate about what Macmillan does. So at the time, there were 80 applications administered by Macmillan. 9 of those applications were client-facing. And to monitor those tools after downtime, the organization's ops team relied on 5 different tools and commonly spent 45 minutes discovering what the issue was. When Instana was brought to the table, however, not only were 5 tools no longer needed, but they also improved application performance by 10 times. And their mean time to resolution was decreased. Let's see how those numbers were effective in Macmillan, and let's see how this demo can exemplify how. All right, so if we look here, we can see that we're at the Instana dash, right? And traditionally, if you have some type of situation that's happening with your client-facing or customer-facing application, you may get an email or even a Slack message or Microsoft Teams message, right? But where do you go next from there? You think about all the tools you have. Maybe you got 5 that you got to look through. With Instana, it's a little bit different. So how we're going to look at this is we have a few different things on the screen here. And from this home screen, we can actually view all of the various entities that are made available that Instana provides you vision into. There are multiple ways that you have monitoring in Instana. So that could be websites, mobile apps. You can even look at the applications. If you're more so on the cloud native or Kubernetes side of things, Instana also supports that as well. Both Kubernetes and Cloud Foundry. For also the OpenShift users out there, it covers that too. Or even if you like traditional infrastructure monitoring, Instana also gives you great visibility into the various hosts that you may be monitoring at a specific moment with Instana. But where we want to go is specifically in the events portion of the tool. So I want you to think about a scenario here, right? Say that you have various tiers or types of accounts for your education organization, right? So just say you have a diamond member that's starting to notice it's a little bit hard to get into the interface that's been built for the school, right? So we go into this specific event and we say, hey, we're noticing a very strong lag for this specific application. So where do we go from here? If we look at this triggered event, we see that we have a direct line to understand what's exactly going on, but also we get a few additional things as well. What does that time equate to? We have the duration here and also an incident timeline, so we can see exactly what were the subsequent events that followed this specific action. So let's go into this triggered event. So if we look at the diamond members being too high, we can actually analyze that load time. If we go into that load time, we have a specific amount of calls that were made specifically on the front end that started to give us a little bit of insight into what was going on. So if we look at these specific page loads, we notice that the duration of times is in a pretty good range, right? So if we just pick one of these load times, we can get better insight into specifically where this error may have taken place. So we get a couple of different things as we dig deeper. We can see some user information. So say that there's a student who has a Diamond account who is using, just say, an operating system such as Windows. I'm a Mac guy, but I'm not shading the Windows users out there. Maybe they have a Windows machine. We can see what type of operating system they have, even what their Windows dimensions were when they loaded that application and when they leveraged it. We can see the IP address, and maybe they're having specific issues in a part of the world, in a specific part of the world. So say if your educational organization has a data center that you're leveraging on the East Coast, but you're in California, you can see specifically if it's a issue with that specific data center or not, and not just that specific type of account. And speaking of types of account, with that area you also get metadata. With that metadata, you can see specifically what type of environment that user may be leveraging at the time, and even what type of membership they may be having. But remember, we're using Diamond, so stick with me. If we come down just a little bit, we can see some activity. And that activity gives us various metrics in terms of the types of calls that are being made on that particular customer-facing application or website. So if we come down to the page load, we see that we have the ability to go into a back-end trace and get better insight. So let's go deeper. We see that we have a lag time. We know that we have some delays. Well, why? Let's see. So if we come down, we can see again, we can dig down deeper into the user information and all of that good stuff. We just saw that, but what's left? If we come down to the timeline, we get a direct correlation from the front end all the way down to the middle that it's running on. So maybe it's not anything to do in the application. So we go down, and if we come down to this timeline at the bottom, we see one of the yellow boxes. And with this yellow box at the bottom, this lets us know that this is the origin of this specific error. So let's click this connect error and see specifically where the error may have taken place. So if we come to the right side, we get additional information about, or details about, this specific call. And we see that there's an error with the connection to the Hikari pool. So it's some type of connection error. So this gives us direct insight into specifically what's taking place. But what if we want to know more? If we come down to the endpoint list, we can see that. But we can also come down to the calls and see in milliseconds what's the specific call timeline or time stretch that was done that equated to this database error. And we can see that here. If we come to the right as well, we can see a stack trace. What's really cool is one of the great things that Instana does is when you provide an agent or you install an agent on the host machine, it not only looks at the infrastructure that you put it on, but when you're using the full breadth of Instana, it also gives you a trace all the way back up to the application. So what I mean by that is if you look at the bottom, we see that we have a specific host running in the Google Kubernetes platform. And if we click that, we can actually go down into the infrastructure and make sure the infrastructure is doing great. But also, if we come up to the right side, the left side, I apologize, the left side here, we can see a trace of specifically what's running on that host machine, and also what are some of the nodes available as well. We can actually come down to the left side here as well and see some of the additional entities, which are all things that Instana identifies when you install an agent on a host. We can see all of the entities as well on the left side, even up into the applications that are running here. And if we take a step back, we can see that same correlation on the left side here, just after identifying that error. So that's how Macmillan did it. They leveraged this component and a few additional ones as well, but I'll leave that for later. If you have more questions, please feel free to reach out. It was a pleasure having you in my corner today, and I look to have you back. Have a blessed evening.